What is going on, everybody? Welcome to a beautiful fall day here in Bastrop State Park in Texas. Thank you for coming along with me on this journey. As you saw in the title of today's video, we are going to be discussing the MT07 versus the CB650R. Now, why am I discussing both of these bikes? Well, I've seen a couple videos describing both of these bikes and comparing them and contrasting them, but a lot of them, it was guys who either have not ridden both bikes or they've done like demo days on both bikes. And I feel like I'm in a pretty unique position to talk about this topic because I am actually, I've owned both of these motorcycles. Gotta be careful with these leaves here. Very slippery. Yes, I've owned both of these bikes. The MT07 I owned earlier this year for a good 2.5 months, 3 months, something like that. It was part of our original giveaway motorcycle series. It's the second bike we gave away, and this bike is actually being given away as well. So if you click the links below, go to yammie.co, you can find out how you can win this motorcycle here for free. If you sign up for a tier 2 package, for example, on the website, $20 a month, you get 200 entries, and you also get access to all kinds of cool perks and features. But yeah, I think I'm in a unique position to compare and contrast both of these motorcycles because I've owned both of them, and I've put on a solid 250 miles on the CB. I've ridden it several times and in several occasions, and I rode the MT07 quite a bit. So I just kind of wanted to walk through both of them and kind of compare and contrast. It's a beautiful day here in this park, and just thought you guys would want to come along for the ride. So sit back, enjoy, and let's get into it. So first things first off the bat, I will be going pretty slow around these little corners here. This is a park where a lot of cyclists and kids hang out at and stuff. There's a couple sections up here on this road where it opens up and it's really beautiful, but for example, if you got a dog right there, you got folks hanging out and stuff, so they can be a little dicey to try to quote-unquote go fast. So we're going to be taking a nice pace here. First thing we want to discuss, look at these vultures. Wow. Oh, he didn't care at all. I love that. First thing I want to discuss is price. So MSRP for the MT07 brand new at the showroom floor is about $7,500, something like that. With dealer markups and tags and fees and all that other stuff, you're probably looking at about like $8,000 for that bike if you can negotiate a decent deal, brand spanking new. This motorcycle MSRP is $88,999, so you're looking pretty damn close to about $10,000 out the door for this motorcycle. I would say you can probably cop it for $9,200, $9,300. So you're talking a differential of about $1,500 between two bikes. So people do cross shop them quite a bit. There's actually a lot of overlap between people who are looking for a 650 class bike in this segment. The MT07, as a lot of you know, is a parallel twin 687cc parallel twin, something like that. And this bike is a 649cc inline 4. And those two engine configurations really tell the big story here. The MT07, you know, it feels grunty, torquey, it feels plasticky, it feels fun, it feels like it's a bike you just want to goof around with and just throw it around and chuck it around corners. The CB650 has this way of going down the road that just feels a lot more serious, a little more corporate, a little more buttoned down. It just feels like, you know, because it has the inline 4 soundtrack, it seems like, you know, it's got more top-end pull and power, and it does. It makes, I think, like 90-something horsepower, 85, something like that. I don't really care too much about power figures, guys. It's not the most important thing to me. But this bike definitely makes all of its power at the top end, and you know, you want to, oh wow, that was a snake, that was cool. Sorry we can't see that on camera. So it makes all the power at the top end, and you know, it just feels a little more serious. It feels like a more serious riding experience. It feels a little more polished, a little nicer, and you kind of just want to take it a little more serious when you ride it, whereas the MT07 just feels like a complete hooligan bike, man. The MT07 just feels like, you know, you want to crack wheelies with it and goof around with it. The CB kind of tells you, it's like, okay, let's ride in a nice controlled manner here. Let's keep everything above board. The MT07's kind of like your silly uncle with like flip-flops and like, you know, Tommy Bahama shorts or something like that. And this feels like your other uncle that's like a doctor and is like trying to tell you to stay in school. But that doesn't mean this thing doesn't pull and can have fun with it. This bike is a lot of fun, but it's fun in a really different way than the FZ07. Ergonomically, they're actually so similar, stock for stock, so similar ergonomically speaking. Both motorcycles you could easily modify to give yourself like a higher bar, or maybe like change the rear sets or something, but out of the box they fit really kind of in that standard sport bike position. I'm just kind of like, you know, sort of upright, but not too upright. You can definitely get in and get sporty and lean with it and stuff. I will say the tires that both of these bikes come with stock are not great. I don't remember the stock tires that the FZ07 comes with, but we swapped them out for the Bridgestone S22s, and it made a world of difference. This Honda comes with these like touring spec Michelins. They're really flat, they're not really kind of V-shaped, and so you don't feel like you get a really good flick into corners with them. I find the tires on this bike to be not really well suited, and that'd be one of the first things I'd like to change if I owned it for a long period of time. I would want something a little more sporty to really you know, feel some of these corners, and because that's what this bike is happy doing. It's really happy being leaned over and having fun, and it's what it's designed to do. But man, these tires it comes with, they're just not that great. The CB650R is a lot happier in the high revs. You get this thing above 8,000 RPMs or so, and it really just sings. It's a lot of fun. Here, we'll bring it out a little bit here. It loves being in the high RPMs, man. It's a really fun bike. So yeah, I think the CB650 just provides the rider a more like grown-up experience, I guess. And that's, I think, exactly the type of audience that Honda is aiming for with these motorcycles. They want someone who is, you know, maybe like 28 to 32, is looking at maybe getting their second bike, or maybe even their first bike if they're willing to be judicious with the throttle. The FZ07 is very clearly aimed at, you know, your 22-year-old hooligan who just wants to crack wheelies. It's definitely that type of bike. I mean, the marketing of itself is also branded in that way. It's the dark side of Japan and all that stuff, you know. So you can definitely see Yamaha trying to strike that younger chord, and it feels like a younger man's bike, you know. It feels like if I was like 21, I definitely would want an FZ07 versus a CB650. And also the price differential too. The other thing I wanted to mention as well is because the CB650 is much more new than the FZ07, I haven't seen many of these going used for less than $7,000. They tend to hold their value extremely well as far as I've seen. Whereas FZ07s, like, we picked up our giveaway FZ07 for $5,100, and it had a ton of mods already done to it. It had like, I think 6,000 miles on it. It was just a prime example of a used FZ07. And then you get a pipe on that thing and it just sounds absolutely glorious, which I'm very excited to see how this thing's going to sound with an exhaust system. I think it's going to be a lot of fun. But yeah, I think, you know, if you're not committed to buying brand new, which that's totally, most of my bikes I've bought used, with the exception of a couple that I bought brand new. If you're looking at a used motorcycle, the FZ07 is going to give you way more bang for buck. You can pay, I mean, I've seen those going for like $4,300 on Craigslist, you know. Questionable examples, but still, like $4,300 and you get yourself an FZ07. So it can definitely be possible to do that with them. In riding the CB650, it's a bit of a shame that I don't have the FZ07 to do a back-to-back comparison, but from what I remember of what I had the FZ07, I think the CB650 has a much more refined suspension package. It's got these Showa forks up at the front. The FZ07, much like the FZ09, I haven't ridden the new generation, but the old generation, they're just not as refined in the suspension category as these kind of motorcycles. I feel like the suspension on the Honda is just stellar. It's really well suited. I think it's really well sprung from the factory. It's non-adjustable, just like the FZ07. You can't get in there and adjust rebound or compression to your liking, but I think they've done a great job from factory. It's honestly a little too stiff for certain situations. Like if you're riding on the street and you hit a couple bumps or potholes, you really want to stand up on the pegs and kind of get some leverage on the bike. Otherwise it does hurt your back a little bit to kind of smash into those bumps with the CB650. Whereas the FZ07 was a much more soft motorcycle, and if you wanted to just plow through bumps and stuff, you totally could with it. A big gripe of mine with this bike, and the FZ07 did not have anything like this, even in stock trim. There is such a noticeable dip in the power band of this motorcycle from 5 to 6,500 RPM. You roll on the throttle, and it almost feels like you've rolled off and then rolled back on. It's the strangest thing, but I'm really hoping that a tune and exhaust will kind of sort that out and get it to be nice and linear, because it is just such a drag. Because honestly, in everyday riding, you're in that spot a lot of the time. You're in that sort of 5,500 to 6,500 RPM spot a lot. You know, if you're just passing someone in traffic, or you're just kind of commuting around, or using the bike in an everyday situation, you'll probably be right in the middle of the power band right there. And to not have that power, it's so frustrating. It's one of the most frustrating things about this motorcycle in an otherwise really complete and fun package. It's most noticeable if you do it in 4th gear from a low RPM and you kind of just roll on. Gosh, it just really dips down so low. The FZ07 doesn't have anything like that. It's incredibly linear. To its detriment, I think, the top end doesn't really... It feels a lot like the SV650 in that it's just that plateau of curve and that perfect kind of horsepower line. You don't get that kind of rush of power like you do with this bike, which some people are really like that. If you are used to 600s and 2-strokes and those kind of bikes, you kind of are used to that kind of boost in power up at the top. The FZ07's definitely not going to do that, but it's got more grunt off the line than this thing. But overall, I think, you know, stock for stock, both bikes are pretty comparable. I know that we did the SV650 and the CB650 review video, and a lot of folks, you know, they were like, you can't really compare these two bikes, they're not comparable, they're in different price brackets. But honestly, I think stock for stock and new for new, they're actually really comparable, and a lot of people will cross shop them, mostly because they're looking at the big four, right? They're looking at, I want a 650cc motorcycle, I think that's going to be a good option for me. What does Yamaha have? What does Kawasaki have? What does Honda have? And this is the bike that Honda has. Although Honda does make so many models of motorcycles that, you know, you could almost make the case that the SV07 competes with the CB500R, but I wouldn't make that comparison personally, because I feel like the CB500 almost is like a Ninja 400 competitor, but then also not really. It's a very odd motorcycle, the CB500. So this to me is Honda's true middleweight, like, offering for entry-level riders, for like second bike owners, like that type of thing. That's definitely, I think, the sweet spot for Honda. So I would say, you know, the comparisons in the naked middleweight category, it's CB650, SV650, FZ07, and Z650 from Kawasaki, which I actually didn't know that bike existed up until a couple months ago. I thought they still only made the Ninja 650, but they now make the Z650, which I think is the weakest competitor in the middleweight class. It's just the least interesting engine. I'd love to ride one to see what I really think of it, but for now, for me, that's definitely bottom of my list. I think they're both incredibly tractable for everyday duty, for street duty, and that kind of stuff. I think both motorcycles you would feel perfectly happy owning and kind of riding in a city or in a suburb, going to work, going to school, whatever you're going to do with it. So I don't think one is like more usable than the other one. The Honda is definitely the most premium option. It's priced that way too. But then the problem becomes, like, you know, if you're going to spend $9,400 on a motorcycle, you start to get into some big boy territory. You know, MT09 starts coming in that price range. Street triples start coming in that price range, which, you know, I gotta say, as a bit of a Triumph fanboy, between this and a street triple, I'd take a street triple any day of the week. Any day of the week. But again, it doesn't quite compete with the street triple, does it? You know, this thing makes 85, 87 horsepower. Street triple makes 115. If you get it into certain other terms, it's like 120. They're very quick motorcycles, and they're lots of fun to ride and own, and can be proper track day weapons if you're, you know, actually using them. This road is great, isn't it? Oh, look at that view. Look at all that burnt forest. I think there was a fire here not too long ago, and that's why it looks all crispy and burnt like that. I was about to say, look at that view, but it's not a great view, is it? So anyways, guys, I think that's going to wrap up my thoughts on CB650 versus FZ07. What do you guys think? Do you have any questions about these two motorcycles that I could maybe answer, having owned both of them? I'd be curious to see what you want to know about them. I think I covered the main ones, like ergonomics, price, and sort of feel, and what they're like to own and ride is kind of the big stuff that people care about. So let me know in the comments below. Always love hearing from you guys. And again, if you want to win this CB650, I'm giving it away for free. Click the links below, find out how you can get entered, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. See you later.